5 minutes after 9 o'clock. It is time for Winging It, and Josh Verdonk is in the studio. Brad is not here. Kevin David is here instead, and Kevin and Josh will be talking to you, answering your questions about what it takes to become a pilot. They are both here from Ocala Aviation Flight School, and of course the show is called Winging It. If you would like to be on the show and ask questions or just chat if you want, the number is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 622 WOCA. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I have a simple question.
Oh boy.
For you. Easy, hard, I don't know the answer, but
right.
Everybody always says Piper Cub. I don't even know if I'm saying it right.
Right.
What is that? What is a Piper Cub?
Well, Piper is the brand of the airplane. So you've got, like Cessna.
Okay.
With cars that'd be equivalent to Honda or Toyota, and then Cub is the model of the airplane. So a Cub would be saying like Chevy Malibu. The Malibu part is going to be your model name. So it's just the Piper is the brand, Cub is the model of the airplane. It's a little two-seater high-wing airplane, cloth covered. You sit behind each other. A lot of times you'll see them. They're very classic yellow, little small engines, and they're fun little airplanes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So when you say the wings are what?
Are cloth covered.
Cloth covered, but they're upper, you said? Or something?
Yeah, they're on top. Yeah, they're high wing, just like a Cessna is.
And that makes it easier to see the ground. Well, I mean, what does it do?
Well, the Cub was kind of designed for more backwoodsy airports and stuff like that, where you might have high grass and stuff like that, so it keeps the wings clear of any obstructions and stuff like that.
Oh, cool. So there's other Pipers. It's not the only Piper. Okay.
Yeah. Like at the flight school, we have a Piper Aztec, which we use for our flight training.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is a twin-engine airplane.
All right, well, the phone is ringing. You guys ready? I knew my question was easy for you, but you hear that term all the time, and people will say that's a Piper Cub. Now I'll know if they're telling me the truth or not.
Yeah.
Well, how do you know that's a Piper Cub?
Yeah.
How do you know? I don't know. I couldn't tell. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hi. How you doing, guys?
Good.
Good. You don't sound like you're doing too good. Just pick it up a little bit here. Say, with airplane identification, I've always wondered about with commercial airlines, where did they ever get the number like 707, 727, 37, 40, and so on? So what does the 7 mean, and like the 27 and 37? Would you know that?
The definition of it, no. That's something that you would have to ask Boeing themselves. I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like... I don't know why Boeing picked 7, but all of their airplanes start with a 7, and then they put the different stuff on, like 727, 37.
Right.
Yeah. I think I read somewhere that also has to do with the year that they bring out the airplane. But they, like, for example, you've heard probably a lot about the Boeing 787 this last week.
With all its problems right
now. Yeah, and obviously they didn't bring that one out in 1987. So, but somehow it has to do with I don't know how they really do it, but I think something has to do with the chronological order that they roll out these airplanes. For example, all the Airbus airplanes are always A3 something.
Right.
You've heard of the A380.
Airbus, yeah.
Yep, and the new one's coming out here in the next 2 years is going to be the A350. So that'll be pretty cool.
Yeah. I would imagine with Boeing then probably eventually you're going to get up to 797, and all of a sudden you're going to be 800 and 801 and 827, and I mean go that route. I would imagine. Huh?
Yeah, I
they
don't
would
know.
have to. They're starting to run out of lower 700s.
Yeah. I always wonder too how like that the one that they're having all the trouble with right now. I guess that's a double-deck airplane that could hold up to around 800 people if it's fully loaded. I mean, how much bigger can a plane get? And when it comes to an airport, I mean, all of a sudden you got a mass of humanity, getting off the plane, and it just seems to be I don't know, kind of in a way almost overdoing it.
Right. Well, the airplane you're thinking of, the double-decker one, that's actually the Airbus A380. That's the double-decker one. The Boeing 787, the one that they've had all these issues with the last week, is the newer Boeing. It's a single smaller little airplane that supposed to be very high efficiency and everything like that. But as far as your question goes with the Airbus A380, they actually had to do considerable modifications to the airports that these airplanes flew into, like London Heathrow and LA. They actually had to do some modifications to be able to accommodate the sheer size of these airplanes.
Yeah, I know with that plane, that Concorde that's out of service now, they could only fly into certain airports because of the noise. you know, in New York and where Paris and London, wherever it was, but they just couldn't go anywhere, you know, because I guess the engines were so extremely noisy that they were forbidden to go anywhere else. But it's in a way, it's a shame that that aircraft was eliminated. I guess it wasn't making enough money, but it's a wonderful thing when you think you can go from the United States to Europe in a couple of hours. I mean, that's fantastic, but evidently it wasn't financially feasible, and it's a shame.
Yeah. I remember one time I was actually 5 or 6 years old in London, and I actually got to see the Concorde take off, and it's just extremely loud when they have those engines up at full throttle, just because of the amount of power that those things create.
Really? And I didn't realize that. I thought the reason was the sonic boom was the problem.
Well, that too. They're actually not allowed to go faster than the speed of sound over any ground. They have to do it over water.
But they're gone? They don't exist anymore?
No, they exist, but they're not flying anymore. They became just too expensive to... The cost of operating them versus what they were bringing in of people flying them was not equal. So. And
you have another phone call. Good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning. Good morning. Can I tell you a little story about my daughter came to visit us with her 2 children from New York to Florida, and she already had the baggage put down below, and the carry-on, she carried a little mixer to give to me, and she said, you don't know what trouble I had bringing that mixer to you. So when she went through the security there, they says, oh, you can't take that mixer because there's a little blade in there. So they said, we could throw it away, the blade, and you could take the rest of it and call the company and tell them you didn't get the blade. My daughter said, no, I don't lie. So she says, well, you can't. She said, well, the only thing we could do now that you're this far and you don't want to bring the kids and your baggage is down, he said, we would have to put it in a package and give it to the pilot. So they gave it to the pilot, and when they landed, she couldn't get her part until everybody was off the plane, and then even at that she had to wait for the pilot, and the pilot had to walk all the way down to the baggage in order to give her that little blade in the mixer. It's one of those little small ones.
Right, yeah, mainly.
I thought maybe you'd like to hear about that.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I just hope that people won't bring anything, even with a little tiny blade in the plastic thing. They won't allow it.
Wow.
Wow, that's an amazing story. I hadn't heard something like that before.
Yeah, well, her baggage was kind of packed anyway, so she figured she carried on the plane in a bag, you know?
Yeah, right.
But it was funny how she had to wait till everybody was off the plane because she had to wait for the pilot, and the pilot says, I'm sorry, I can't give you. I got to walk down to the baggage. When you're going to get your baggage, then I'll give it to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she told me, see what I had to do to get that little mixer.
Wow. I hope it works.
Yeah.
It's quite a story.
Yeah.
That's a great story. I appreciate it. Thank you for the call.
I hope it don't happen to nobody else.
Yeah. Well, maybe it won't now that you've let them know.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I think you have another one here. Good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, I had a question. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
On the new 780 series that has the issues now, what is the significance of what I hear all the time is the batteries in them versus the aircraft prior to that just have the jet engines? Did they run more off the battery than the jet engines?
No, the jet engines are still the same. The problems that they've been having is with a certain avionics battery or a backup battery for the avionics that's starting to overheat. So the airplane runs just like all the other ones do. They've got high efficiency engines, but that's just an advance in technology. The principles of the jet engine are staying the same. They're not running off of electric like an electric car would and everything like that. The real sad thing about it is that the 787 is getting so much bad press because of all these problems they've been having with them. But if you look back in history, every single airplane that they rolled off the production line for the first couple months always had what they call, the teething problems, basically, where certain problems start popping up as the airplane is flown that didn't show up in testing. The 737 had issues with its engines and stuff like that when it first came out. The 727 had issues with the third engine that's mounted up on the tail of the aircraft. But with the lack of media, or not as intense media back when these airplanes were introduced, they weren't given such a bad rep. But the 787 just having some of these problems because of all the media attention. The FAA has said, all right, we're not flying them anymore until we do a review, more as a PR move than anything else.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you very much.
Yep.
You all have a good day. Bye-bye.
Yep, thank you. And Dan just handed me a sheet about the Boeings, and it says here, I'll just read it for you real quick. After World War II, Boeing decided to shift from building military aircraft back into building commercial aircraft, missiles, and spacecraft, and the engineering department assigned blocks of model numbers to each categories. The 700s were set aside for jet transport aircraft. The two descendants of the Dash 80, being jet transports, were assigned the 700 block, but the Boeing marketing department decided 707 was a bit catchier than the number 700. The marketing department then decided all remaining model numbers that began and or ended with 7 would be reserved for commercial jets. I guess because it just sounds cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting that they kind of perceive that it would sound cool, you know, and it does. Yeah. It sounds cool. Yeah. By the way, what you just described about the problems with the plane, like that hadn't tested it, and it doesn't really apply to the whole fleet.
Right.
Back when I used to fly a lot when I used to perform music in colleges, and the DC-10 was a common plane back then, and it had some bad press, and suddenly none of them were flying either.
Right.
I don't know. That's way before your time, but it's probably the same type of thing. The DC-10 had a.
Yeah, the big issues that they were running with some of the DC-10s was that some of the airlines weren't maintaining them per the regulations and that the manufacturer had put in the book, and they were just kind of skipping a couple steps, which was leading to issues. And so that's probably what the FAA is looking into right now, is if that battery's not being inspected properly as Boeing wants it or whatever. I don't know exactly what they're going to do with it. I don't know if you remember when the A380 first came out, the big double-decker one, they had bad press because they had microfractures occurring in the wings. And people were very worried about it for a couple months, and Airbus, went back and rewrote some of their maintenance directives and everything like that, and the problem was resolved. And now you hear almost nothing about it. So I think it's going to go the same way for the 787. It's going to be down for a little bit.
Yeah.
They're going to resolve the issue, and it's going to be just as safe as any other airplane. But you can only test an airplane so much before you have to release it.
Right.
And then
real world.
Yeah, and then the real world actually tests them as well.
Sounds fair. Yeah, that's probably the way it always is with cars and everything.
Yeah, with cars as well. Lots of times when a car first rolls off the production line and is available to the consumer, the first year or two you'll have a couple recalls on different things that they've realized, we need to fix this or that. So
you mentioned something. I have maybe a dopey question. So an airplane comes with an owner's manual?
Airplanes come with an operator's manual, all right, but you'll also have a service manual for them as well, all right.
It must be huge.
It depends on the airplane, but yeah. Okay. Lots of these airliners come with books and books and books or binders and binders of manuals. You've got just one binder on maybe the primary electrical system and one on the secondary or whatever. I'm not exactly sure how many they have, but they've got tons of publications where the manufacturer has gone in and said, these are the things that you need to make sure you check.
Wow.
This is how this works and everything like that. And that's to keep mechanics from just kind of going in there willy-nilly and doing what they think is best.
There you go. And for the little planes that we typically see at the Ocala airport, is that?
You'll have what they call a service manual, which will just pretty much have everything in it. And then the service manual will also say, fix this in accordance with the FAA publication of this. So you have to go get the FAA publication and see what it says about how to fix that particular issue.
Oh, wow.
So
how many? You have a lot of mechanics over there at the airport?
There's a mechanic shop at the airport. We don't use them for our flight airplanes. Our airplanes are done by someone else, but there are some mechanics, yes.
Okay. And you have another phone call. Good morning. You're on the air with Kevin and Josh.
Good morning, Kevin and Josh.
Good morning.
We're talking about these planes and everything. I mean, even some of the older passenger planes basically are two decks. One deck is for the passengers, and the bottom deck is all for the cargo and luggage. And I can remember when they used to literally weigh everything you brought in, and they also had to redistribute the luggage evenly through the plane so as not to disturb the center of gravity.
Correct.
Now, the other thing I really want to talk about, especially with the smaller planes, is the age of some of these planes is really astounding when you look at them. I mean, there's some of the older Piper, one of the first Piper triplane, triplanes as far as the landing gear, that with the nose wheel. I don't know if I'm using the right terminology, but these planes are still flying today, and just goes to show you that they were built to last, number one, and number two, they were built to be maintained. Some of the cars you get today, something wears out, it's cheaper to replace the car than it is to repair it. So I'm wondering what your comments are on that. And I'll hang up and listen. Have a great weekend, guys.
All right, thank you.
Go for it, Kevin.
Right,
You haven't said much this
I'll
show.
attempt this.
Yeah.
The airframe of the plane actually lasts a very long time. I mean, there's a few planes at the airport that are, in the 60s. There's actually a couple at the flight school that are, one's a 65 and one's a 67. And the airframe lasts, a long time, as long as you don't abuse it. You're not trying to do acrobatic stuff in a plane that's not designed for acrobatics.
Mm-hmm.
The airframe will last a while. The engine, that gets a little more
wear and tear,
replacement, overhaul, stuff like that. So the engines aren't original in the planes. Usually paint jobs kind of wear out after time, just sun fade. And
yeah, the big thing is if you maintain an airplane properly, and overhaul the engine when it needs to be and everything. Like, airplanes can last almost an indefinite amount of time, honestly, because they're built in such a way that they're built to counteract fatigue, metal fatigue, because you don't want metal fatiguing while you're flying around.
So you wouldn't want that.
Whereas, certain parts in cars are designed to wear out over time, so that you go out and you buy parts again, or, scrap the car and get a new one. That's how the car industry stays working.
Yeah.
But with the aviation, the value of the airplane stays very, very high. When you first buy an airplane, the value drops quite a bit, but then it's going to stay at that level for many years to come, as long as it's maintained well and everything.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So.
And I think you're right. I think cars are built to break down so that. But planes not, huh? There's just not as many airplane mechanics. So you guys, the planes that you use are repaired somewhere else, huh?
Yeah, we have a mechanic that either we take our airplanes to him, or he actually comes to the airport and inspects and
on what needs to be done.
Depends on what needs to be done.
And is he in Ocala?
No, he's not located in Ocala.
All right. If you would like to call and ask a question or join in on the conversation, the phone is open. The phone line is, and the number is the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline, 352. If you're out of the area, and I see some people watching on video, so you never know where they are. And then the rest of the number, 622-9622. Yeah, you got a lot of views today.
That's good.
It's Kevin's pretty face.
Yeah.
Your family watching?
My family, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the phone. Yeah. Good morning. You're on the air.
In defense of our instructors here, the sheriff, when I was very active with the county, they used to bring the helicopter all the way up to some place in Lake City because they were reliable, and they did a lot of work on that type of helicopter that we had flying in Marion County. And that's the way it was. You went where you wanted to make sure this thing is going to fly and stay in the air as long as you're in it. So you know, there's a lot to be said for that. And again, it's easier to travel someplace outside your area at 120, 150 miles an hour than it is at 40, 50, or 70. Hey, thank you.
By the way, I read a story that all those little tiny helicopters that they were sending at Christmas time were being used by kids in their neighborhoods at night, and they've got lights on them. And so it explained, they were using that as an explanation as to why there were so many more UFO reports. Kids are flying these little helicopters outside.
Oh, were there more UFO reports?
Yeah, according to and some of them people are taking seriously, so I don't want to say one way or the other. I don't know, but
that's their reasoning behind it.
Well, they said they sold a record number of those remote control helicopters this year.
Right.
Those things are pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw a guy working it in the mall.
Yeah, we went.
It was very cool.
A couple weeks before Christmas, actually, a whole bunch of us from the flight school went and got a bunch of them. We were all flying around the hangar and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
About 4 of them up there, yeah.
And they all broke within a week.
And did you guys have lights on them?
Yeah, we had a couple mid-air collisions with them.
That's too funny. Good morning, you're on the air.
Hey, Bruce. Listen, one thing about an airplane is that aluminum, it lasts and lasts. But if it gets corrosion on it, they have a treatment for it. I know I had my wings treated on my plane. And one thing people forget, that annual inspection runs anywhere from $400 up. And depends on how old the plane is and how much it's going to cost. When you get a plane that's old, it's going to cost you. Now, fabric plane, like an old Cub, if the Cub's gone bad, you got to cover the whole thing, practically the whole thing, the fabric that they use on it. It lasts. Well, an aluminum plane, all they have to watch is for corrosion.
Correct. Yeah.
And I've owned 5 airplanes, and it gets pretty expensive when they get old, but they'll still fly.
Yep. Yeah, and actually the price of an annual is even higher than that. A lot of places base price for an annual starts at $700, and then what we're talking about here is a annual inspection that must be done once a year to these airplanes. And I know for some of the mechanics, their base price for the annual starts at $700, $1,000, depending on what the airplane is. Yeah. It's $1,000 for them to look at it. And then, if there's anything wrong, you pay for whatever you want to have them fixed to make it airworthy again.
And we had this discussion once about taking lessons and getting a license. And once you get the license, how much does it cost to buy a plane? And you had gone over the idea that you would not buy one if you more likely rent, unless you're what
depending on how many hours.
15 hours a week or something.
We'd say generally 15 to 20 hours a month.
A month.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're not going to be able to fly or not going to be flying more than 20 hours a month, it's not worth it to pay for the airplane, pay for the hangar costs, pay for the inspections, pay for insurance, all that kind of stuff. And especially as a low-time pilot, insurance is going to be outrageous because insurance actually goes down as you have more experience in the airplane.
Almost like car insurance. The older you are, the more experience you got driving, the cheaper your
Well, that's not
insurance
necessarily true either, because my rate went up this year for some reason. Well, I had a cheaper rate last year on my car insurance than I do this year. Explain that to me.
When you go to higher...
And I didn't have any accidents, by the way.
When you go to higher altitudes and ice gets on the wing...
Yes.
You know how we always hear about that with the big planes? Like they've got some way of handling it. Do the small planes have a way of handling that?
The ones that we do not. Certain small airplanes do, and there's lots of times they're kind of like kits that you can buy and have put on the airplane, which are very, very costly normally.
So for the smaller planes, it's not
for the
really
smaller planes.
What are the heaters?
There's a couple different types. They've got heated wings, which you won't see much on smaller airplanes. You see those mainly on jets, just because they take a lot of power to power the heated wings, and it's just the wingtip that's heated, or the wing leading edge. Yeah, sorry. Then you'll have weeping wings, which are like they've got a whole bunch of little holes, and they secrete a alcohol-based.
It's like an antifreeze.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then you'll have another time where they have little vessels of air that expand and contract to break off ice. But you won't see those much on smaller airplanes. The best way to avoid icing conditions is to make sure you stay out of places where there's visible moisture and below freezing temperatures.
Yeah.
And is there a gauge in the plane that tells you where the moisture is?
No, but there is one that tells you what the temperature is.
Okay.
Visible moisture is clouds.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
If you stay out of the clouds and below freezing temperatures.
Okay. So now I know what visible moisture is.
And we also want to congratulate a couple of people too on this.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Real quick before we leave here. We had 3 check rides. I'm not sure if we talked about them last week.
I don't know. We're just gonna go over them again.
We have Olson and Irishman both passed their instrument check ride, so they are able to fly into the clouds legally now. And Miss Mitchell, and she passed her private check ride.
Yep. So congratulations to all of them.
Yep. And that was the check rides that we had last week. So we're not sure if they got on there.
Yeah, I don't know. So we'll just go over them again.
Well, all right. That's a big achievement, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's always fun to watch the joy in their eye. You know, just the happiness when they finally get that license.
Sometimes.
Well, if you're itching to do the same thing and you want to start taking lessons, you might want to call the Ocala Aviation Flight School. And what's your number over there?
352-861-7484, or email us at ocalaviation@yahoo.com.
Okay. Kevin, good to see you again.
Thank you.
Josh, thank you for coming in, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you.
All right. Thank you.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala. The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Life jackets save lives. Swear it, Florida. Intervals of clouds and sun today with some showers in the area. It'll be breezy and much cooler than